to talk about something that a lot of people, anytime I talk to people at the moment, they keep asking me a very similar kind of question, and it's coming about because of obviously like the current kind of zeitgeist at the moment, and the things that are happening and things that are happening in the world. And so just as a bit of a kind of like show of hands, who before you like came here today, who checked the news? Yeah? Okay, maybe you didn't do it this morning. Did you check the news like last night? You check in on what's going on kind of thing, yeah? Who at the moment has just gone, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to look at this thing. It's just too much. It's I don't want anything to do with this at all. Yeah, so like this, I think this is like it's a common thing. So for me, I'm like obviously checking the news and checking what's actually going on in the world at the moment. And look, a lot of us probably come here today because we kind of want to put a lot of this stuff down. Like there's these huge, massive things that are going on in the world. A lot of conflict, a lot of wars, a lot of all these different kinds of things. And most of us just go, hey, Sunday morning, nope, I don't want to deal with it. I want to come to the Buddhist center and not think about it. But guess what? I'm gonna ruin your Sunday for you. So obviously, it's something that most of us do want to leave at the door. There's a lot of times when we sit down to practice as well, we want to leave a lot of these things, aside. Now, okay, this is okay. This is okay to do at times. This is sometimes a healthy reaction to it. But I think the thing we have to remember that even though we might leave some of these things at the door, we might leave some of these things aside, like they're still happening. We can't, as much as we want to bury our heads in the sand, a lot of these things actually still do happen. So our response to that is either, okay, yeah, one, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to deal with any of this at all. And again, this is fine. Our response might be we get really engaged in it and we get maybe overwhelmed by it. Our response might be, hey, this thing's too big for me. I can't really do anything about it. Whatever our response is, this is kind of normal. This is for a human to react in this way. And so what I kind of want to suggest today is that however we're reacting to these things, this is actually an opportunity for us to practice with however we're reacting with that. This is in some way our own mind speaking to us about the way that we think about these like larger things in the world. Because if we think about this from the kind of mind states that come up that when we're confronted with these kinds of things, I think there's there's plenty of ways that we might react to these things. But like I think the three big main ways, and the three ways that I'll kind of talk about today a little bit, is there's you see like wars and injustice and hospitals getting bombed and all these kinds of things, and you look at something like that and there's a particular kind of anger that arises when you see these things. There might be a particular kind of grief when you see a lot of these things. And I also think there's a particular kind of passivity that we might have, or a particular kind of hopelessness that we might have when we see some of these things. So essentially what I wanted to talk about today is like, how do we respond to these things? How do we respond to these kind of feelings when we have these huge things that are out in the world? Now, the first thing I'll talk about is the anger that comes about from this. Now, okay, everyone here is pretty familiar with Buddhism, and in Buddhism, is anger good? No, it's even if you're not a Buddhist, most people can answer that and go, yeah, well, Buddhists say anger isn't a good thing. Now, usually, do we think from a Buddhist perspective, is anger something that we should develop, or is it something that we should abandon? Something that we should abandon. Anyone say that, okay, everyone agree with that we should abandon it? Yeah, there's a hand. Is it something that we should develop then though? Yeah? Should we use it skillfully? Yeah, maybe there's something there there's a way that we can actually use it skillfully. But if we're kind of thinking about it from the perspective of Buddhism, it's like, well, most of us have this kind of understanding, just this kind of innate understanding, and there's nothing wrong with it, that anger is one of the three main defilements within the mind: greed, anger, and delusion. It's one of the three root poisons. So we just have this kind of, basic understanding that anger is something that's not good, and anger is something that basically should be abandoned. We always think, okay, anger is always unskillful. It is an unskillful thing, and we shouldn't. So if it's unskillful, we should let it go. But as you said, maybe this is something that we can use skillfully here. So I think a lot of the times when we think about anger, there's different ways we can think about what anger actually is. The first way is, okay, so who basically here has experienced like somebody just kind of like says a joke to you and you like take it really personally. This person was maybe just joking and all of a sudden it's like, I can't believe you said that about me. Yeah. Somebody's basically just said something and you've taken it as a personal affront. It's like, how could you say this thing about me? Yeah? We all had that? Yeah? Has anybody not had it? Basically all of us. So we would say this is a kind of an anger that forms out of a sense of like a kind of ego in some way. It's something that has happened in the world has hurt my ego, and I react to it and I respond to it in this way. There's this other kind of anger that we get who basically has like a running monologue of like, oh, this person shouldn't do this, or why are they doing that? Anyone have that? I have that all the time. Like it's basically 50% of my existence. So we have this. We all seem to have this kind of anger that's like directed out into the world as well, directed onto somebody else. Now the Buddha talked about this kind of anger. Anyone know like the simile of coal, like the simile of the burning coal that the Buddha talked about? So the Buddha talked about like anger as a kind of burning coal. And he basically said the person that holds the coal, they're the ones that get burnt because of it. So anger is it's a kind of burning, it's a kind of coal here. But so these are the general kind of anger that we have in our response to the world. Like there's a kind of anger that's arising because there's something happening towards the self, or something towards the ego, but then there's a kind of anger that happens because we're angry at something in the world, generally speaking. There's another kind of anger that is out there, and it's something it's actually not so well fleshed out from a Buddhist perspective. There's something called moral anger. Now, moral anger, it's actually a kind of, and so the reason I got like thinking about this is because it's a long-standing problem in Buddhist philosophy, at least. Buddhists, again, we all say, should we get rid of anger? Yeah, we should get rid of anger, obviously. Yeah, we should. It's an unskillful thing. We should let it go. A lot of in Buddhist philosophy, like there's people that kind of push back against that and go, actually, anger is a useful thing. Anger is something that's useful. It motivates us to act. If we see an injustice somewhere, this is the thing that can actually force us to act in some kind of way. So there is this kind of anger that we call moral anger. And just before I continue to go on, I'm very indebted to somebody called Logan Mitchell, and if he ever watches it, hello. We discuss things. He's a Buddhist philosopher, and he writes and thinks a lot about how like a Buddhist anger. How anger is used might be used in Buddhism. He's also, for those of you who are fans of Thich Nhat Hanh, he actually does like philosophy of Thich Nhat Hanh, which is really, really interesting as well. And so we have this thing that's basically like moral anger, and this is our response to some kind of injustice, something that we see wrong in the world. It's a kind of anger that we get when people are suffering and things are wrong in the world. Again, if we think back to that first kind of anger is like something's done something to slight me. Or we have that other kind of anger as like there's somebody else in the world and they're doing something wrong. This is a different kind of anger because you could say in this and those first two kinds of angers, we might be seeing things not clearly. We might be seeing things in a distorted way. But the idea with moral anger is actually you're seeing the world in a clear way. You're actually inferring something about the world correctly, and it's kind of right to be angry about this. You see somebody suffering, or you see some kind of injustice, and you're kind of right to feel angry. You're kind of right to feel angry about that. So I think there's something there about moral anger. Again, if we think about this from a Buddhist perspective, if anger arises, our usual knee-jerk reaction is like, abandon it. So I actually think there's some, and I could be wrong about this. Again, I only started thinking about this morning, so forgive me if all my thoughts aren't very coherent about it. But I also think there is something there about some kind of, with moral anger. It's not something we should maybe pathologize in the same way that we do other kinds of anger. It's, again, as you said, it's probably something skillful that can be used. I think when we experience this kind of like moral anger, when we see something bad happening in the world, I think what we should, instead of going, hey, anger is bad, I shouldn't be doing this thing, what we should be doing is like, where is this anger coming from? Why is this kind of moral anger? Why is this arising? If it comes from a place of like care and concern, then this is a kind of information that we have. So the anger itself is a kind of information about something that's in the world. So, and you could say, look, this is kind of like the mind doing its like job. This is you being a human, like doing being a human properly. You see something wrong in the world, and you kind of get angry about it. But the task, and this is the tricky thing, the task with something like moral anger is like, well, how do we use it but not get burned by it? Again, if we think back to that simile of the Buddha with the coal, it's like the person that holds the coal, this is the thing that burns them themselves. But how do we use something like moral anger? How do we use it as a piece of coal? How do we use it properly? Now, it's not like we say, hey, coal is useless. Coal is a fire, it burns things. It's like, but it's how we actually use the coal. That's the important thing. We can't just go, all coal should be put out. And by the way, when I'm talking about coal, I'm not talking about like fossil fuels that should be burning and terrifying the environment. I'm talking about like a piece of coal, a burning piece of coal. I'm using it as the analogy here. Sorry, I should have said that before. But how do we use a piece of fire, a coal from a piece of fire? We don't just put all coal out. We actually have to use it in some way. And it's the way that we hold it, the way we manage it, that actually makes this thing skillful or not skillful. It's not the coal itself that's the problem. It's the way that we're actually handling it. So if we can just keep that in mind is that, it's not that we need to extinguish the thing, but we have to learn how to use the thing properly without burning ourselves. Is that okay for now? Okay, cool. Okay, so the second kind of thing that we have when we look at all these huge problems in the world, again, war, all these different kinds of things, who basically sees these things and just goes, oh, it's too much. Yeah? Well, yeah. You probably all should. You probably all should think that because it's kind of massive. And so a lot of times we have this kind of feeling of hopelessness. And we're just going to be passive towards these things. Now, this feeling of hopelessness we get, it's a kind of heaviness, it's a kind of weariness, it's just something that kind of weighs on us so much. We can look at the scale of things that are happening in the world. We can think about centuries of oppression. We can think about the scales of global war that is going on. We can think all of these kinds of things, these things are rampant corruption in the world and all of these kinds of huge, massive kind of things. And then we kind of look at ourselves and my hand, if I look at my hands, it's what am I going to do? What are these two hands going to do about that? And we have this kind of feeling, it's like nothing. I can't really do anything I can't do anything about systemic, all these huge systemic problems. So just for a moment, just for yourselves, to get at what I'm thinking about is just for a moment, think of something huge. that's happening in the world. And just think about it, like not in the terms of like, I need to solve this thing, but just like, what does it make you feel like? Like the war, the war that's happening, Afghanistan and Pakistan at the moment, or the war, how does that make you feel? Is it something that's like kind of light and airy? Or is it something that's like incredibly like heavy and constricted and all these kinds of things? So this is the kind of the sensation that I want to talk about a little bit here. It's like, it's this kind of heavy feeling that we get with the world, this sense of hopelessness. It also might be this sense of like, just push the thing away. Did anybody have that? This is my kind of reaction, is like, just push the thing away. So we have this kind of feeling, and there's this nice, we can think about this in terms of like the Buddhist perspective, and everyone's kind of familiar with the parable of the two arrows. Yeah, everyone basically knows most of that. For anyone that doesn't know, is like the first arrow is the kind of the inevitable suffering because of something happening in the world, some sort of pain, something happening. The second arrow is like our reaction to it. So this feeling of hopelessness, we can kind of see it as one of the second arrows. It's this kind of feeling, it's like there's this huge, terrible thing that's happening in the world, and I can't do anything about it, or I'm going to push it away. So again, it's our kind of response to it. So this feeling of hopelessness, I think, it's something we have to be like really careful about. And why do you think we should be careful about hopelessness or passivity? Anyone have any ideas? It's lazy. Yeah, it's lazy. Exactly. Hopelessness has a kind of seductive nature to it. It's like, this thing's too big, I can't do anything. So you have this kind of, it feels seductive, and it can even actually feel sometimes like wisdom. I can feel mature about it. It's like, yeah, look, I'm just wise. I know that these kinds of things happen. I can feel mature. And even in some ways, it can actually feel like I'm just being equanimous to these things. Now, but again, if we think back to that example I had you do, it was like, well, think of the feeling of that. Do you really think that feeling is equanimity? No. Is it more like a pushing away? Or is it more of a kind of contracting? So something like equanimity, or something like real maturity, something like real wisdom, it should be freeing, it should be open. But it's not. So I think if we're feeling this way, some of you might have had, it's like, yeah, I'm actually equanimous and I have all these other things, and that's good, that's great, you're doing better than me. So this feeling of true wisdom and true equanimity, it should be like a freeing feeling. It shouldn't be like a kind of contracting or a pushing away feeling. But I think if most of us are honest with ourselves, the reaction that we have is that contracting, that kind of pushing away. So that actually doesn't mean that we're really being equanimous about this thing. So I think something about our experience and about the way that we're feeling in relation to these things should tell us whether we're acting with Dharma or we're not in this way. And I think we just have to be honest with ourselves. And it's not to say that it's bad. It's not to say that the way that we're reacting is bad in any kind of way. It's just, again, the reason I'm trying to talk about this is like it's something, this is the path, this is what we have to kind of work with, yeah? So the next thing is this feeling of, so the next big thing that we get is this huge, maybe this feeling of, we see, images of, like war and things in hospitals and all these kinds of things, and we might have this feeling of like overwhelming grief about this, all these images that are out there, all these things. And so I think there's thinking about this a little bit and again trying to think about it in terms of like from the Buddhist perspective, and like who's heard the story of Kissa Gotami? Anyone heard the story of? There's a few that might have heard the story of Kissa Gotami. So I'll give the overview of it first, and then we'll kind of like trying to pull it apart a little bit. So the story of Kissa Gotami was somebody, I can't remember actually where she was, sorry. I didn't have enough time to prepare for this, so I'm going off memory a lot. Kissa Gotami was somebody, she was a mother and her child actually died. And she was overcome with, obviously her child just died. She's like totally overcome with grief to the point where she became manic. She, from memory, she took all her clothes off and she was walking around, I can't remember where it was, walking around the city, essentially naked, carrying her baby around and going, he's just sleeping, or it's like he needs to come back to life. Can't remember the exact thing that she was actually saying. But anyway, she's overcome with grief and carrying her baby around and basically not accepting the fact that a baby had died. And she ended up meeting the Buddha. And the Buddha said, I can bring your child back to life. I can bring your child back to life. And she's like, this is great. This is the best thing. He's like, but to do that, I need you to go and get a mustard seed from a household where somebody has never died. And so she's, obviously she's, she's overjoyed. So she actually starts to go from house to house and knocking on the doors and asking for a mustard seed. And everyone's like, oh, of course, we'll give you a mustard seed. But she's like, well, actually, has anybody here in this house died at any point? And obviously, the person that opens the door, they're like, yeah, of course, my mother died, my friend died, even my own child had died. So everywhere she went, she could get a mustard seed, but she couldn't find a place where nobody had died. So people were willing to give it to her, but they couldn't give it to her because somebody had died there. And obviously she's going from house to house to house to house to house. And, it's the same thing. Somebody's died in every place. And so eventually she kind of, something clicked. It's like, this is the nature of experience. Everybody's subject to the same thing that I am subject to now. And so then there's this nice story. She goes back to the Buddha and she actually ends up becoming enlightened. Now, a lot of times we look at this story and we look at it in terms of, this is what happens when we don't accept things. Maya Gotami's reaction, we think this is a manic, we think that this is a, unrealistic reaction to not accepting reality. This is what happens when you don't accept reality. We also take this teaching a lot as of somebody that doesn't accept impermanence or doesn't accept inevitable death and things that happen in the world. And look, this is a good way to interpret this. But I think there's also another way we can think about this story as well. I think the way that we can kind of think about it is Kissa Gotami acted. Kissa Gotami did something. She went and she did something. She didn't just passively go, my child's dead, I'm going to sit in the street and do nothing. She actually went out. And she's like, why has this happened? What can I do? How can I bring my child back? How can I actually do something about this? So she went out and actually tried to find a way to do something about it. Now, you might kind of say, it's well, it didn't work. Really? Did it not work? It actually did work in the end. Something happened. She saw the Dhamma because of it. She realized that all of us are kind of susceptible to the same things. So the thing that we think maybe where you fail, you're actually doing something about it, and it's leading to this thing that we want to happen. So I think, instead of just going, I can't act, all this is too big, it's you just got to do something, even if it's the wrong thing to do. So many instances in our lives where it's I have no good options. Who's ever been in that? I'm constantly in it, there's no good option here. I just have to do something. And so a lot of the times, even that just simple act of just doing something, it's going to move us forward. So even though we are overcome by kind of grief or all these huge kind of these massive things, it's I just have to do something, even if it's wrong, I still have to act in some way. Because again, if we think back to Kissa Gotami, it's you might think that the action that she's doing is wrong, or it's irrational, or it's it's not accepting of reality. But but it's that kind of action that leads to the result that she wanted in the end. So I think we have to kind of like take this on, and again, taking this as a kind of like take-home message, like there isn't a moment in time where you can't act. Like every moment there's something that is there that's available for you to do, no matter how small, no matter how, how wrong it seems, no matter how maybe ineffectual it might actually seem. I'm not I'm not trying to say this as some sort of like pep talk and get out and do something. No, not at all. For me, this is actually like, this is deeper. This is actually like something about changing the structure of reality in this way. If we're serious Buddhists, is like, again, everything is a causal process. So every action that we take changes who we are. Everything that we do, every thought that I have now shifts and changes who I am. So then, therefore, every action that I do actually like changes something out in the world. Every action, like I don't know how this is going to change the world, but it shifts the structure of reality. Every action that I do shifts the whole structure. Like if I'm not here, something changes about reality. Again, you'd have somebody else sitting here today. But the way reality is structured right now is because I'm here and because I'm doing something. Again, I could have just gone, hey, yes, last night, I actually do have to go out today. I had something else planned, but I was like, okay, no, I changed something. So my actions, however small, like it changes the structure of reality at the moment. So I think like anything that we think about these things in this kind of way, any action that you take, like even if you think like it's never going to have a consequence, it does have a consequence. Every small action that you do does have some kind of consequence. Like it might be small, you might be the only one that ever knows about it. But it's still something. It's still changing it's still changing the structure of reality in this kind of way. Now again, because I'm talking to Logan a lot about this, and again, he's very influenced by Thich Nhat Hanh, and it got me kind of thinking about, there's this really nice way that Thich Nhat Hanh, obviously, everyone knows who Thich Nhat Hanh is? Yeah, basically. Anybody that doesn't know, he was a Vietnamese monk, a Vietnamese Zen monk, and became very prominent, especially around the time of the Vietnam War, for the kind of activism that he did. But then also, developed a whole lineage of practice around like peaceful action as well. And so there's this kind of, and other people can like correct me here about this, is that like when, don't know a little bit more about Thich Nhat Hanh, but obviously he's in kind of like war-torn Vietnam, and there's destruction all around him. Like the place is getting like torn to pieces. There's so much, there's so much death and destruction that's around him. There's just a constant stream of like boats and people drowning in the ocean and all these kinds of things. And so from my understanding, the question of Thich Nhat Hanh was never as like, how do I solve this? Like he never asked himself that question. Like the question that he asked himself is, what can I do right now with what's in front of me? This immediate thing that's in front of me, what can I do now? So it was never the question of, can I fix the war? Can I stop the boats? Can I stop the killing? All these kinds of things. The question was like, what do I do right now with what's in front of me? And that's the kind of the action that actually leads to some sort of change. If the thought is like, how do I stop the war? It's like, you're not going to do it. But if it's like, what can I do right now? This is actually something that produces some sort of change. So I think this is something that we should try to ask ourselves again when we're looking at the news and things are going totally spiraling out of control and all these kinds of things. We can kind of ask ourselves as well, okay, I'm having this kind of I'm feeling this moral anger. I'm feeling this kind of guilt. I'm feeling I want to push this. I'm feeling I want to push this away. But instead, we can take that and we can use that. Again, don't push this stuff away. Actually take it and use it. And we take it and use it in this way of what can I do right now? What's something small I can do right now? What's one what's one letter that I can write, even though I know like nobody's going to read it? What's one kind of conversation that I can have, even though, look, they mightn't listen to what I've got to say? What's this like one small thing that I can actually do that how can I even just like show up and know, look, the thing that I'm doing here, probably it's not going to have that big of an impact, but at least I show up for this thing. So I think if we think about these things in this way, it's like then there is actually something we can do about these bigger problems that are in the world. Again, because it's not this huge thing that I'm trying to push away. It's actually something that I can do something about. Might even just be something in your own mind. Again, these small things, they do actually matter. So I think there's this, in some way, we kind of shift our relationship to this thing. And again, like Thich Nhat Hanh, of like, the question isn't like, how do I stop the war? The question is like, what do I do with what's in front of me right now? And again, so I think if we kind of take that to the situation that we're feeling kind of in society at the moment and things that are happening, it's like, this is the only way these things actually change. They don't change by kind of burying your head in the sand. They don't change by kind of like frantic action. They don't change by like, responding with more aggression. And so it's by taking some of these responses that are just kind of natural to us, the feeling of moral anger, the feeling of guilt, guilt or grief, the feelings of kind of like listlessness and hopelessness and heaviness, and actually using those of like, well, what can I do right now? So with that, that's the talk. Sorry it was heavy, but I got put on the spot. so yeah, hopefully that was useful and informative in some way.
Sadhu. Thank you, Ajahn Sādaro. Amazing for a talk you came up with at the very last minute.
No,
we really, I think, all appreciate it.
That's right.
We'll do questions.
Yeah, for sure.
Alternating between the in-person and the online audience. So is anyone in the room going to start us? Oh, we have one. Thank you, Michael.
Good morning, Ajahn.
Morning.
When you were talking about anger, I thought of Jesus in the temple whipping the money changers.
Yep.
There are often cases of enlightened masters using anger.
Yep.
So I don't think anger is the issue.
Yep.
It's just an energy.
Yep.
So, you can use it good or bad, whatever.
For sure.
So, I don't know. I don't really have a question.
Yeah, no. It's a good observation. And again, it's a good. And you said it's like, well, how do you use the thing? Is it a means? Is it kind of a means? Can you use the thing skillfully? Now, there's. So maybe if a lot of you have read like the Buddhist sutras, it's like the Buddha always seems like passive and like, omnipotent in this kind of way and peaceful in this kind of ways. So most of us have got that like looking at the sutras. If you've read the monks' discipline, what they call the Vinaya, there's plenty of instances of the Buddha kind of getting angry and like really criticizing people like incredibly harshly, like, you stupid man. It's like really, really kind of laying the law down in many ways. So even the Buddha himself seemed to use maybe like there's like the kind of motivation there. And you're right. So say for somebody that I live with for like quite a long time is somebody called Ajahn Mahabua. He was one of the Thai forest masters, and like he was pretty fierce. He would scold people a lot. So he kind of used it in this way where it's like, we have to in some way like his big thing was like fight against the defilements that are in the heart. Now, that's this is some people like that approach. Some people are not so keen on it. But it is for somebody like Lungta Mahabua, it's like that's a skillful means. For him personally, that's a kind of skillful means. So I think there's something there about using it skillfully. And like the other thing I think about as well is if we're thinking about how do we use it skillfully, there's also something, I think there's something there about compassion as well. In that, like, so compassion is, and this kind of like ties into it in some kind of way of using anger in this way. So compassion, like, you know, we think compassion is this like beatific state or whatever it is like, but if we think about actually what compassion is, it's a response to suffering in the world. One sees suffering that's there, and one is like motivated to act because of it. And there's obviously an emotive quality to that of cooling. But the initial response from compassion, and I could be wrong about this, the initial response from compassion is a kind of like an agitation and a motivation. It's like, this is wrong. Something in the environment, this thing is actually wrong. So in some way, there's this kind of negative response to suffering, but then a motivation towards it. And it's a motivation that's maybe encased in something cooler, as opposed to like the fire of anger or something. But you can't not admit that there isn't a kind of like quivering motivation there at the heart of something like compassion. There's a motivation there. So whether that's anger or not, you know, that's probably a bit of a leap. But I think also there's something about, you know, like that motivation there that's pushing one towards. So again, it's how you use the thing. Now, compassion in this kind of way as well is like, we might feel motivated and we might try to be empathetic and we might get burnt out because of it. But it's that other supporting quality that's there as well, of the actual quality of compassion, this open and spacious quality. So likewise with something like anger, it's like, can we, you know, harness it in some way? Can we use it well, but can we support it with other qualities as well? Is it just anger of screaming at someone? Well, you know, it might be in the moment, it might be skillful. But you know, how can we actually imbue them with those other qualities? And you know, getting back to the Buddha, making the Buddha being like firm and kind of angry towards people in this kind of way. There's these other motivations behind it, for the good of the Sangha, all these things. Ajahn Mahabua, he'd scold people, but like there was some kind of like, there was this just, it was like, I don't mean to be paternalistic in any kind of way, but it was like he really did care about you. Every time he kind of yelled at you, it was like, this guy like cares about me. He's kind of, it's terrifying, you know what I mean? But it's still like, it's like when your parents like scold you or something when you're like 3 years old. It's like, this is terrifying, but like they kind of care for me. They're doing it because they care for me. So this is a very long way of saying that, but I think, there is something there about like, how do we like skillfully use these things? That the emotion itself, I don't think it's so problematic, but it's the way that we're actually using it, I think. Yeah, so it's a good point.
Yeah, you could call it tough love.
Yeah, tough love kind of thing. Yeah,
but
tough love.
Your other point about having to do something, I think before you do something, first you need to be still.
Yep.
So not just react, but to get clear.
Yep.
You're not going to get clear by just doing. You
100%.
need to stop.
Yeah.
Like they say, be still and know.
Yeah.
So you need to tune into the reality before you do something.
Yeah. And so, that's a good point, because so I think when we're working with these things is like, it is something that we have to practice with. And again, so let's say, for example, I'm sitting here and I see something in the news that causes a reaction. Again, we have to like look into ourselves and go like, what's the motivation behind this thing? What's the motivation behind this thing? And it's like, and now, okay, I have to do something. The small thing I can do, but can I do that from a place of like, can I do that from a place of true equanimity? Can I do that from a place of true stillness? It's like, again, that I think that's what makes it more effective. And getting back to the example of Thich Nhat Hanh, is like I think that's why he was so effective. He was operating out of I'm going to act, but I'm going to act in a peaceful way. I'm going to act it's coming from this point of like stillness. It's coming from this point of like true care as well. So I think, before we act, we should we might be motivated by some of these some of these more negative things, but the way that we act and respond, it should actually have some of those other like more positive qualities to it.
Thank you, Ajahn Sādaro. There are a couple of notes of appreciation online and a question. So I think people appreciate that you're talking about this, including those who are angry with what's happening in places like Iran and Lebanon and Gaza. And then the question is, thank you for addressing the issue. I am completely outraged on these attacks and feel helpless. I don't really understand what I can do other than to be helpful to people around me. So I think there's this question of helplessness, and you sort of point to anger, and then they don't know what they would or could do. So is there any guidance you have on shaping the direction of their efforts?
For sure. Look, so the kind of the take-home message of the whole talk is like that you can do something. That you just have to do something. Not be kind of paralyzed by, as like, well, I'm angry and I can't do anything. I feel hopeless and I can't do anything. I'm overwhelmed with grief and I can't do anything. The whole kind of point of the talk is like you have to do something, no matter how small it is. Look, and it might be wrong. Like most of the time, the actions that we do are wrong. They might seem ineffectual in any kind of way, but we should just act. We have to make some kind of action, however small it actually is. So, look, I can't give you like a recipe of like, you feel anger at this specific thing, so you should do this. This is something that you have to ask yourself. I can't answer this thing for you. You have to ask this for yourself of like, okay, I feel angry about this thing. So what can I do? Again, thinking about that kind of Thich Nhat Hanh thing of like, the question isn't like, can I stop the war? It's like, well, what can I do in this moment? What can I do right now? That's the kind of the take home here. It's like, so obviously a lot of the times we're feeling angry. It's like, I just don't know what to do. Again, it's too big. It's all these kinds of things. I don't want to act out of anger. But I'd also kind of say, it's like, well, you just have to do something, even though it might not seem like the right thing. And again, pulling it back to the kind of the Kissa Gotami example, it's like, look, so her running around naked through a city with a dead child, it's like we can go, oh, that's the wrong thing to do. But actually it led to the right outcome. Again, so look, a lot of the times we don't know what to do. A lot of the times is like the action that we take is quote unquote wrong. But again, I think if we just act, like then it moves us towards something. It moves us to like, and we learn from it. If we don't do anything, we don't learn from it. Like if you sit there and go, I'm just not going to, I'm outraged, but I'm not going to do anything. You don't learn anything from that. Nothing changes in existence. Actually, I shouldn't say that. You not doing anything is also an action. It's an action within itself. Me being outraged and not doing anything about it is an action. So now, is this the most appropriate action? Is this something that's going to lead to, again, like feeling more contracted, feeling more tense, feeling more kind of like burdened and heavy and weighed down? Or is this action going to lead to more kind of freedom? Is this going to lead to a more of a, some sort of cooling? Is this action going to lead to something that's more like opening? So again, we just have to act. And so even not acting is doing something as well. Even just stewing in your own anger is doing something. But is it the most effective thing that you can do? And again, we have to, thinking about these things, it's like, again, it's a huge thing. It's like, but I can't do anything about the war. It's like, but there's something small that you can do. Like, again, it might just be talking to somebody. And again, like they mightn't listen. Yeah, it's fine. I spend the majority of my life talking and nobody listens to me. That's like, it's fine. It's okay. It might be like, again, this idea of like just showing up. It's like, I don't think this is really doing anything, but it actually is doing something. So unfortunately, I can't answer the question for you of what you should do, but you have to do something. And even not doing anything about it is actually doing something. And again, the not doing something about it is still, if we take the logic of what I talked about before, it's like it's changing the structure of the world. It's actually changing the structure of reality. You not doing anything is changing something about the world. It's moving it in a particular kind of way. So, I actually really do believe we're all responsible. We really are all responsible. We're responsible in the way where we either just don't do anything, or we're responsible in the way that we actually do something about it. Every action that each individual takes has meaning. It actually meaningfully changes the world in some kind of way. So whatever action that is, it's like you're changing reality. So again, just thinking about it in this way of like, okay, I just have to act in some way, however small that is, however silly it may seem, however wrong it may seem. Like, I don't really know, but it's going to change something about the world. But it is, I think it's just acting. That kind of paralysis that comes about from hopelessness, that shuts us down. And again, it changes the way that the world is. So just doing something, I think, is the best course of action.
Thank you, John. Kim, who asked the question, sends her thanks and said it was very helpful. Shall we get another question from the room? Oh, there's one, Bridget, next to you.
Hey.
Hello.
No.
I've bought a candle.
Yep.
To light a candle for world peace.
Yep.
Because I was upset by the war in Iran.
Yep.
And I was wondering if there are any Buddhist words that I could say when I light the candle to help to dedicate to world peace.
Yeah. And again, look, good. You're doing something. This is something you can do. Literally, let's kind of think about this. You lighting the candle, right? You lit the candle and you did something there in that moment of you doing something. Now you're actually asking me about it. You're asking me about lighting a candle. And you're talking to like a whole room of people about it. Like, this has an impact. Unfortunately, you're on the internet as well. So like, this is kind of recorded and like, there's going to be people like down the track that actually, nobody's going to listen to it, but nobody listens to me. But it's, there's going to be other people that are online that actually listen to this. Maybe there's people down the track, like in the future, that listen to this thing. So this one simple thing of you lighting a candle because, for what's happening in Iran, it's not a small thing. It is now not a small thing. It is, you might look at, it's just a candle. Listen, no, all these things have happened because of it now. All these other kind of ripple out effects have happened because of it. So that doesn't answer your question, but I just wanted to bring it up as an example of how even something incredibly small has a ripple on effect, has a broader effect on these things. So, but you asked, obviously, is there any kind of like Buddhist words that you can say? And so I think the most important thing is like just to kind of say what's in your heart at that point. And that would be, for me, that would be like the Buddhist words. If you're operating out of care and concern, if you're operating out of, I think this thing is wrong and this is the thing that I can, this is the action that I can do, this is the karma that I can actually do now, then, that's like, for me, that's kind of powerful enough. But, you can say kind of like, you can frame it in a Buddhist way of like, okay, this action that I take, this small action, may this be a cause for peace to occur. And again, I don't know how it is. May this karmic act have a knock-on effect. May this small karmic act have a knock-on effect to greater good karma for others. So, and again, if you actually think about that thing that's happened, like, it already has had an effect. It already has that, again, that whole thing of like you lit a candle, you actually asked me a question about it now, we're talking to a whole room of people about it, it's on the internet now, other people are going to know about it, other people might go and light a candle now. Other people might go, yeah, that was a good idea, let's go and light a candle and I should do that and I'll talk about it and all these kinds of things. It does have this kind of impact. So, that way we can maybe make that kind of determination that, by this small karmic act, may some greater karma grow from that.
Thank you, Ajahn. There are a couple of questions. I think people are trying to make sense of how this relates to other things.
Yeah, for sure.
So how does this relate to equanimity? Do you not just end up trying to overcome being embroiled in these emotional dramas in life by just moving towards equanimity? And then I think the other part that is related, how does this relate to primal heat? I think the question of wisdom of like action-based, non-harming intention. So how does this relate to in Buddhism the dhatu fire concept? Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah. So equanimity on one side and I guess fire on the other side.
Yeah. Okay. It's a difficult question because if part of the talk I was talking about this kind of thing as like sometimes like hopelessness or passivity. It can like come in the guise of something else. It can come in the guise of I'm just being equanimous. I'm just being mature. I'm being wise. So yeah, I think what we thinking about it in terms of equanimity is like I think we just have to be kind of like really honest with ourselves and really look at like what that experience is that we're actually having. Like, is this true equanimity or is this kind of like pushing things away? So I think there's a kind of equanimity that we have where it like look, it might just be like surface level and we might be going, okay, well the thing is big and I'm just trying to be equanimous about it, but it might have this underlying, some sort of underlying like negative input to it. But it's like if we work with it a little bit, it can be like the equanimity that we actually want from the rest of the with the rest of the path. And so like how that relates to how do we know that we're actually really operating out of equanimity as opposed to like passivity? Again, I think it's just something you have to look in your own heart with this thing. And we did that exercise while I gave the talk of like, think of something big, think of something like big, massive, like issue that's in the world. And what's the felt body sense at that point in time? Like, how do you actually like feel about this thing? And, while your mind might say to you, I'm being equanimous about it. It's actually, you might have this feeling of like, it's just so heavy. Like or it's like, for me, it's this kind of like push away. So, really kind of being honest with what we're calling equanimity, I think by looking at how we're actually, well, one, the kind of labels that we're put on in our mind, but two, the bodily response that we're having at that point in time. I think that's a kind of a measure of whether you're really being equanimous in this all. I think the other wrinkle to that in some way, some people have this feeling of like, I'm being equanimous, but it's like, it's kind of cold. Like there's a kind of cold, kind of freezingness there. I don't know another way to explain it, but it's kind of, I'm being equanimous, but I'm kind of cold to the thing. Now, I think if that, like if you're feeling that, you might think, this is the coolness of equanimity, but it's actually like the coldness of a rigid heart as well. So we have to be careful about that. And again, not to say you have one of these instances and it's wrong. Like, look, it's just like, this is how we're built. My thing is like, we just have to be honest with ourselves and we have to kind of dig deeper on it. So even if it feels cool, go, okay, well, is this the coolness of true equanimity, of like freedom? Or is this just like the coldness of turned away from the thing? So so part of the question is like, well, how do we work with these things? I think we work on it through like sort of being embodied in this way. like being truly embodied about like what's this thing, how is this thing playing out in my body, and how is that like reacting to the mind. Now to the kind of the fire element of it. I'm not entirely sure what the question is here, but look, there are, and so I'm just going to infer. Sorry, because you're online and you can't respond. So there are some of these like practices in certain like Vajrayana traditions where you use like the fire element. You use the fire element as a kind of motivating force to like want to burn up the defilements that are in the heart, that motivate you to act in a particular kind of way. So I think, you know, that's the only thing that I can really think of with the kind of the fire element practice. But yeah, I don't quite understand the question good enough to give you like a good answer for that. Sorry.
Thank you, Ajahn. Other questions from the room?
Should it?
Oops. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, John.
Hey, even stood up for it. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, it seems to me that, you know, a lot of us feel anger with what's happening in Iran, especially the killing of the school children, and so many other things, just to start.
Yep.
But it seems to me we're dealing with a very corrupt politician in Donald Trump, right?
Yep.
He's one of the most corrupt politicians going. But the fact is that there are other corrupt politicians in the world.
Yep.
It just so happens that he's leading the most powerful nation in the world. He's got all the power.
Yep.
And he can do what he wants. And that's what he's doing. So it seems to me that corrupt politicians have been around for years, for eons, right?
Yeah.
So perhaps that's one way the best we can do is kind of reconcile or accept it, because, I mean, I don't know. I mean, this lady lighted a candle, which is very nice. But it's, the only thing we can do is kind of accept the fact that there are corrupt politicians and have always been there in this world. I don't know what you...
Yeah. So like I don't disagree. I don't disagree at all. And it's obviously like something, say for example, like the war that's happening in Iran, it's like that, like there's key players. Like there's key players that are inflection points in this kind of thing. And look, they're like, ever since we've had the Roman Senate, like politicians have been corrupt in this kind of way. Now, but also in the same, like within the same token, it's like they don't happen in a vacuum. This stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. Like certain kinds of politicians that make calls and all these kinds of things, and other, this doesn't happen in a vacuum of itself. It's like it has so many knock-on effects with so many other people that are within politics, the military, religion, society, generally. Like it has so many interrelated factors within it. So, I think it's a lot of times it's easy to go, let's just blame that. Let's just blame that one thing, that one person or whatever it is. And it's like, look, are they a big part of it? Yeah, they're probably a big part of it. But these things are incredibly complex and interrelated. That's not to take any of the responsibility away from that individual as well. Again, there's a responsibility there. But I think, for me, I think of responsibility in this greater term that we're all responsible. Like each individual is responsible for these things and about how we react to it. Now, there's some people that act in a particular, if one particular kind of politician that's like leading an American army, they have more of an impact than what I do of, as you said, of like lighting a candle. But both have an outcome. Both have some kind of impact on the thing. So there's an element there. Yeah, okay, we kind of realize that we have our own sphere of influence. But we have to act within that sphere of influence. And I think it does change things. but that element there of going, okay, well, I can kind of accept that like there are corrupt politicians. Yeah, like we should kind of accept that. My favorite saying at the moment is like, the only thing that we like learn from history is that we don't learn from history. Like, like we should have worked this out. Like, by now it's like, haven't we worked this out? It's like, no, we just don't learn from history. So knowing that certain people that are in power are corruptible and have their own motives. We kind of have to accept that, but then we also have to do something. The more we kind of throw our hands up and go, well, that's just the way things are. Yeah, we can. If we do that, then actually these things continue to spiral out of control. Now, again, I think it's about going, well, okay, I know that this is the reality of the world, but how do I still do something? And how do I still do something? And even though I know, like, look, do I really, is this really going to change the structure of the world? Is this really going to change this actual situation? It's like maybe not, but I still have to try. Is it going to stop is there going to be another war? Like, I think if there's humans around, there's going to be another war. I don't think this is being pessimistic. Like you said, it's being realistic and knowing, but we just don't want to fall into that acceptance of like throw the hands up acceptance. We should have an acceptance, but it's like, but I still do something about it. Whatever that is and however big or small that might be. I think we've got time for one more quick one.
I think there are some hands up here. Thank you.
Hi. I just wanted. It's not really a question, but feeding into what Ajahn is talking about, which seems to me to be about. Well, my interpretation of it, coloured by how I feel, is that it's important for us never to forget to show our light, to show what we think. To stand up, in other words, to stand up. It's really easy to feel disheartened and to give up. But the give up really is giving up. The give up means you give the Donald Trumps of the world the right to walk over you with their boots, their biggest boots on, and walk over others with their biggest boots on. And we wouldn't have, I know we don't have a perfect world at all. We have a very extremely imperfect world. But for example, one thing that came to my mind while we were discussing this, was the issue of racism. I'm quite old now, and I can remember the days when people like the days of black and white segregation in the United States. I don't know if anybody else in the room can recall that, but I remember that. And I remember the fact that in the United States they had buses for black people and they had buses for white people. Or alternatively, they had sections of the bus at the back that were marked black only and sections at the front that were marked white only. Now, you would never imagine that we could ever have got so bad as that. But we did. But the only reason we turned around to become something else was that people like me and you, for example, just the me's and you's of the world, were all prepared to get out there in the street and say, not okay, this has to stop. Was the only reason it changed was the energy of the population. And similarly now, I have a friend. Sorry? No, it's not a question. No, I'm just sharing. And similarly now, with the war on Iran, I have a very good friend and neighbour who's was born and brought up Jewish, and she would still tell you that she's Jewish, but she's out there in the pro-Palestine marches with a Palestinian kafiyeh around her neck, because she's not a supporter of violence and injustice in the name of any religion of any sort.
Yep.
And she's outraged at what the Jews are doing. So my point is just we have to be willing to stand up. I one time recently saw the size of a protest, pro-Palestine protest, and heard the numbers, and I couldn't believe the size.
Yeah. They're really.
I should have been there. Is my point, and I think we have to not dismiss that.
100%.
Energy.
You're right. It's like you just have to do something, whatever it is. You don't know if that thing is going to be useful or not. And look, these things take time sometimes. Sometimes like an idea actually, or seeing something that's wrong in the world, it actually does take time for it to change. But you have to do something, and if you can do something, like eventually, hopefully it'll change. So with that, we're going to have to call it a day. We're at the time now, so I'll pass back over to Michael.
Okay, thank you, Ajahn. Thank you, everyone. It's obviously, big things are happening in the world, and they're going to stay with us, it would seem, for quite a while.
Samsara,
Samsara. But let's, whilst we're here, let's be kind to ourselves and create a space where we can support each other, because that's one thing that we can do. Okay. And then we can work out if there are bigger things that we can do. But let's just start with ourselves. Okay, announcements. Yes, I've done this, but I'll do it again. Thank you, Ajahn, for stepping in at the last moment. And,
it's the one thing I can do. The one small thing I can do.
I think having regard to the circumstances is very appropriate to put it out there and to allow people to have a chance to think and express their feelings around it, because it is significant and it does affect us. And as I said, unfortunately, it looks like it's going to keep affecting not just us, but lots and lots and lots of people for quite a while. Okay, formal announcements. Just a thank you to the people who came last week for dispute resolution discussion. So on the basis that we kind of formulated a bit of a plan and going forward. There'll be another meeting around it, but we won't hold that till after the AGM. We've got a bit of work to do between now and then on the AGM, and then a little bit of time to do some work on the dispute resolution process. So there'll be something coming up in a while, and we'll let people know around that. Next week there is a communal fundraiser. So this is just a little brief offering next week on the line of a Thai forest cloth offering. It's been sort of organised really by the online community to support Buddhaloka Centre. But so you can join online or you can be here. And it will be next Sunday at 12:45. Okay. During the week, people probably will have seen their newsletter, so announcing the fact that our AGM has been scheduled for the 19th of April. So, and also what went out with that notice at the time, and some people, I think everyone who's a member would have got a separate notice asking them if they were coming, could they please register to assist us with planning. I do encourage everyone to come along, but we know that AGM's not everyone's cup of tea either. But we not only that, also what went out this week was nomination forms for the committee and nomination forms for proxy votes. So you're entitled to vote if you are a 2-year financial member. If you're a newer member, at this stage you can't vote. But we're doing, nonetheless, encourage you to come along, and you're able to speak at the AGM if you wish. There's a little bit at the end of the AGM after we get through the formalities, which always take longer than we plan, I would say, as well. Now, but let me go back to nominations. We need a committee, and some of us on the committee getting a bit older, year by year, day by day, hour by hour. So we would like, it's always good to have some new faces, some new ideas, and a turnover on committees is really important. So if you're thinking about it, if you could be persuaded, if you think it's a good idea, if you think it's some way you might be able to assist the Dhamma, just come and talk to a committee member and think about whether or not that's something you could do. But at the same time, you will have seen a note saying that we're trying to establish sort of, and we have established already, but we want to continue the process, more subcommittees, so that for two reasons, it does take some of the workload off the committee, but the second reason is that it enables people to come in at a more grassroots level and have their say and have their impact, and by working on a committee sort of get a sense of how the society works, and then at some stage in the future you might think, well, okay, now I can in fact go on the committee. So we would like everyone to have a little bit of think about that side of the organisational side of the society and how you can contribute. Next week there will be, so I've just ran out of time this week to get it done, but next week there will be the motions that are being put forward at the AGM. They're relatively straightforward, but you'll see those and have a chance to look at them in preparation for voting on them at the AGM. Then lastly, just going on, last week I announced, and we'll do it doing again this week, obviously, Harmony Week. So this is the Dandenong Interfaith Group, and they've sort of just came to us a couple of weeks ago and said, look, we don't get many Buddhists at these events, so encouraging anyone who lives out that way to think about whether they would like to attend. There's a function on Wednesday, but it's during the day, so you have to be available, and the details are on the in the newsletter. So the guest speaker for that will be the Bishop of the Ukrainian Catholics in Australia, Mykola Bachop. On the online studio discussion, the next one is this coming Saturday, the 24th at 7. And then in regard to retreats, the Ajahn Brahmali retreat coming up the 2nd to 11th of April. We just sort of doesn't look like we've still got a few places left, but we haven't had any registrations for a while. So we're going to close the bookings for that retreat next Saturday, the 21st. So if you, at the last moment, you decide you want to go, this is your week to do it. But we'll close the bookings at that stage. Ajahn Brahm retreat in May, 3rd to the 9th of May, is fully booked, but we'll put people on a wait list if you are interested. And then next week's teaching program, Monday night meditation. Ajahn Sādaro is going to be here one more time. He's doing double duty. Okay. And then next week, I haven't written down, but I can't.
Ajahn Nisarno.
Ajahn Nisarno.
Yeah.
So, yeah, okay. So that's... and then on Monday night, Venerable Chandaratna Tero, who's giving a retreat, but he will come down on the Monday night to lead the meditation. So that's it for the announcements. One more.
Just very quickly, everyone. So yesterday, the City Zen Young Adults Group had their AGM. Lewin Cool, who's right next to me, is a new president of City Zen. So please congratulate him. Lewin, is there anything you want to promote in terms of City Zen, call-outs? I'm putting you on the spot. Nothing? Not right now. Okay.
Okay, so I'll ask Ajahn to formally close, but just after, please, if you would like to, please come and share the Pindapata, stay around. Thank you. Bye.
Nice. Just a little, just a tiny announcement. If anybody is feeling handy, the clothesline out on the vihara is broken. There's some wire for it. If anybody feels handy and they want to put up the new clothesline, the new line there is for it. I can't hang around today, unfortunately, for any questions. I actually did have something else on that I was meant to go and do today. So I'm just going to have the meal and take off very quickly. So unfortunately, I can't sit around and answer your questions today. But you can talk to me any other time, while I'm alive. So yeah, it's okay. So we'll close it out. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipanno bhagavato sāvaka sangho sanghang namami.